Themes are powerful forces. They are the undercurrent to your world. They're the color, they're the pigments, they're the flavors which make your world what it is and give it its unique style and flavor. What I mean by that is that when we're running games, when we're building worlds, what we're really doing is we're telling stories, creating the elements of a world so that certain things are more likely to happen to others, that the world unfolds in a certain manner, because that's the kind of world it is. Take a fairy tale world and put it side by side the Grimdark world. Grimdark is obviously dark and shadowy and full of grime, but it's also about hard luck tales, about people constantly being broke, about things going wrong, and the players having to deal with some of the slimiest, scuzziest people in the world. In a Grimdark world, things rarely go right, and when they do, the players will be lucky if they break even. And that's a description of the world, but it's also a description of a pile of themes. Take that side by side with a fairy tale world. A fairy tale world is exactly the opposite. Everything goes their way. People are glorious and beautiful. In deception, if deception takes place, it's not someone trying to get a leg up over someone. No, it's a grand master scheme, or it is a hidden fantastic element to be revealed only to the player because they behaved in a virtuous and good manner. In a fairy tale, being good, being virtuous, being honorable is more important than strategy and tactics or gold and silver. In fact, by doing those things, they are much more successful. A glorious golden knight who stands boldly before a dragon and challenges it openly will actually defeat it, despite the fact that it's tactically probably the worst thing he could do. And money, if money is necessary, it just comes to them. They find hidden treasures. People give them gifts by doing good things and being good people. In fairy tales, they are rewarded. Choosing good for the sake of good is the whole aspect of fairy tales. Two significant different worlds with different laws, different forces behind them. In fairy tales, good things happen because we're good people. In Grimdark, bad things happen to everybody. So you might as well do what you can to get ahead. If we told the same story from those two different worlds, those two different themes, we get two very distinctly different stories, even if every element is the same. Let's take a classic Dungeons & Dragons story. The players are hired by someone important and offered a reward to go rescue a woman who's been kidnapped by a warlord. It's pretty straightforward. But if we want our worlds to be unique, if our worlds are unique, if they have unique themes, unique ideas, they become very different. Let's take that same adventure and tell it from a Grimdark world, one where everything's slimy and scummy and no one gets an even break. Instead of being hired by a lord, they're hired by Grimshanks, local meat purveyor, and most important person in this town. As far as you're concerned. Yeah, I'll talk to the warden. I'm gonna bust you out of here, but you gotta do me a bit of a favor. And see, here's the thing. This woman, Lady Elaine, lives down the road. Anyways, old Cuthbert, the warlord up on the hill, he kidnapped her, took her off. Now, normally, no one would care. I mean, little how's your father? No one really gives a word on what he's up to. Except, word got out, that's not what's going on. The old Cuthbert is planning to raise an army up in that castle. He's got a whole bunch of dead. He's got some wizard prepared to basically cast some spell. I guess sacrifice them and bring a bunch of undead back to life. Which means we're all gonna die. So here's the way it works. You head up there, grab the woman. How's your father? Come on back here. Spit spot. Everyone leaves. I'll even pay off your debts and take care of the thing with the warden so you don't have to go back in jail when you get back. How's that sound? Fair? Well, I don't know if it's fair or not, but we better pull through, otherwise we're all dead. Good luck. Same story, but distinctly different. The first story, the players are probably going through a series of tactical encounters. In this story, the players are vastly outnumbered by who knows what. It's Grimdark. Everything goes wrong, everything goes bad. That warlord absolutely is going to sacrifice that woman. If the players don't get there, she will die. More importantly, will the town be infested by undead? You better believe it will. Players literally at this point have two choices. One they can go against an encounter which they may not be able to handle. Save that woman and get out of there before an army of undead descends on the town. Or 2, they get on the nearest boat and flee. I mean, after all, this is Grimdark. If the town's gonna get wiped out anyways, maybe you do a last-minute heist, steal something important, and get out before the town's destroyed and no one knows you did it. Same encounter, same story, same mission, same module, same setup. But the world's a different, darker place with different encounters and different outcomes because you have different themes, different rules, how the world's going to unfold, how things are going to turn out. So do the same thing right in a fairy tale setting. Once again, the players are brought forward before an important person.
It is I, the Grand Mage Lemonster. No, don't get up. I'm quite fine here. The wounds are healing. I managed to defeat that dragon, and soon I will be back to full power. So it pains me today to come to you. See, I'm far too injured to do this myself. The warlord, Marduk, he's captured the Lady of Lane. He's planning to force her hand in the marriage, thereby cementing the alliance and giving him a chance to take over half the kingdom of Ravenwild. I've come today to ask you to help. I know this is a lot to ask you after all you've done for us, but I fear what happened to Lady Elaine if she's left in the clutches of that foul beast, and furthermore, what happens to the people if Marduk becomes their king. So, I fear it must be you. You're the only one who can do this, not only because of your heart and your soul, but because there's something else I have to tell you. Something no one else knows, something to bit of my shame. You see, Marduk is your brother. Long ago, when you two were first raised, I could see the darkness in him. I knew what he was capable of. I spirited him away to make sure that, well, this would not happen. I took him to a friend to raise, to learn, to become a better person. He did not take, he learned all the wrong lessons. He instead took every bit of honor and glory was taught and twisted on its head. He turned every magical cycle and turned it into foul sorcery. He's a monster, and I made him. I'm afraid the only person who could possibly bring him back from the edge is you. So go out there, face those creatures, bring back Lady Elaine, and face your brother. Whatever you can. Save him too. See if you can undo my worst failure and bring glory once again to Ravenwild. Thank you.
2 worlds, 2 sets of themes. Grimdark, doing anything you can to get ahead because the world's going to screw you over no matter what. And fairy tales, being good for the sake of good. And having the world reward you for it because the world needs good. 2 distinctly different worlds, but often have the same stories, the same tales. You can take the same modules from any standard Dungeons & Dragons world and drop it into both worlds and have distinctly different outcomes, simply from the fact that each world has its own unique forces and themes. Great, now we know what themes are. How do we utilize them? Well, first, look at your stories, look at your world. What are the themes, what are the memes, what are the tropes that constantly come out over and over again? Try and identify those. Are your nobles in your world glorious and honorable, like in a fairy tale? Or are they dirty and out for themselves, like in a Grimdark world? Is magic fantastic and full of possibilities and hidden in every corner, like in a fairy tale? Or is it full of blood and guts and things you don't want to know about, leading only to madness and despair, like in a Grimdark? Point is, look at your stories, look at your world, and determine what those themes and elements are. Write them down. 2, once you have them determined and written down, now reinforce them. Tell the players about them. Put them everywhere in your world. Don't be subtle. If the world is a muddy, dirty, terrible place like Grimdark, make everything muddy, dirty, and terrible. Make the world literally gray. Give people names like Hog and Foul and Grim. Make sure every aspect of the world reflects that world. Lean into it and lean in it hard, so the players know right away what the Grimdark world is like, just by walking around in it for a few minutes. If they walk around and they see more gong carts than they see knights, they'll know the big difference between your world and a regular fantasy world. Same thing with fairy tales. Lean into the fantasy aspect. Giant castles, glorious people who have unearthly beauty, virtue, and fame. Have people constantly talking about hidden wizards, secret dragons, fairy kings and queens. Make it part of your world, every aspect. Name your community Ravenwild. Let them know there are fairies playing in the woods, and the fairy king once a year goes looking for a bride. Give every detail to reflect the themes of your world. Lean into that fantasy world, lean into it hard. 3. Try to determine if there are any additional rules or mechanics you need to add or observe for your world. If you're living in a Grimdark world where everyone's broke and poor, how do you deal with players getting money? How do you deal with them actually doing good things? Well, easy mechanic for dealing with that is to not give them experience points. Don't give them milestones either. Make them pay to level up. Let them use their gold and all the coins they earn to pay off their debts, to gamble, to grub. Money they waste and throw away becomes the way they level up. So the players are constantly broke, constantly without coin, constantly with only a few coppers to their name, even as they're getting bigger and stronger. But more importantly, you're reinforcing the idea that money and getting ahead is more important than completing the mission or goal. If it's all about walking away with a few extra coppers as opposed to, actually rescuing the damsel in distress, you've achieved Grimdark. Same thing if you're dealing with a fairy tale. What mechanics do you need that? I would probably say both virtue and corruption. People who are dark and evil in fairy tales gain corruption. They turn dark and evil and take on warts and twisted limbs. In their pursuit of power and dealing with dark forces, they become visibly dark. Same time, people who are virtuous act good, have things treat them well. The world not only unfolds for them, but they gain abilities and powers that are unique to them. Their voices become golden. The animals bow down before them. They travel among fairies and kin. It's a fairy tale after all. Recognize those rules and what you have, what you need, what you need to import, and what you need to reskin. Once you've done those 3 things, now you're ready to apply themes in your world. You can find those elements you need to bring in. What things you need to cut, what things that you need to reskin in order to basically create a world which is distinctly yours, to bring out those themes. Playing in a fairy tale, you need virtue and honor. You need incredible magic and glory. Gold and deception is probably almost beneath you. Tactics and strategy may go the wayside and compare to bravery and courage. Meanwhile, if you're playing in a Grimdark world, getting ahead, being deceitful, doing anything you can to survive and get by, get a little edge every single day, it's far more important than being a good person. After all, when you're dead, they're going to sweep you in the pile with everybody else. Dead man's dead, but a rich man's rich. And it should be the goal of every Grimdark character to at least live a life that doesn't completely suck. So those are themes. Powerful story elements which guide and change your story, that create the colors and ebbs of your world, that tell the story how it's unfold, and determines what rules you're going to need to tell those stories so the story will unfold the way you want it to. In any case, we're done for now. If you saw the teaser, you may be wondering, where's the dungeon? Unfortunately, even after severe editing, it was still just way too long. The opening description alone would have been a half an hour long. So that will be coming next. We're going to do the dungeon. We're going to create a magical Dead by Plane that represents old school Dungeons & Dragons style dungeons that attaches itself and invades modern 5e dungeon settings. A world where you get to pay attention and figure out the dungeon and overcome it by what you can know, do, and think of, rather than what's on your character sheet. And that'll be coming up next. In the meantime, good luck and good gaming.